Mr. Adams, are we streaming yet?
Yes, ma'am, I just started it.
Okay, fantastic. I'd like to call the Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 Hendry County School Board regular meeting to order. We are going to have Reverend Brown, School Board Member Reverend Brown, lead us in prayer.
Amen. Eternal God, we thank you for this moment. We can come and discuss the business in the county. We ask now you bless all of our efforts. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen.
Thank you. Dr. Burke, will you please lead us in the pledge?
We pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, very good.
Great job, Dr. Burke.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
if we could pause for a moment of silence in memory of Sonia Baldonado. Baldonado was employed by the district as a paraprofessional at Westside Elementary School from 1989 through 2003. Thank you.
Thank you, Superintendent. On to item number 2, citizen comment on agenda items. Were citizen comments received today?
Yes, I have 4 comments, and in the record, I should probably read them and have the hard copy for the file, if that's okay.
Yes, Superintendent. If the rest of us, while he is reading this, can please mute our microphones, we won't have as much feedback and the person speaking will be clearer. Please and thank you.
Okay, the first letter. Dear board members, I understand that these are difficult times and everyone has been affected by COVID-19, but I want you to consider postponing graduation so that the kids can have the proper recognition and celebration they have worked so hard for. If that is not possible, consider doing their ceremony for the immediate family only outdoors at the football field while keeping the social distancing guidelines. They deserve this. Graduation is not only walking across the stage, it represents so much more to so many. In our personal experience, my son was diagnosed with Asperger's during kindergarten. It has not been an easy journey. Many challenges have been overcome and many tears have been shed, but today he is a success. With the limited, almost non-existent resources that our county has for autistic children, he has succeeded. He is dual enrolled, graduating magna cum laude, is in the top talented 20, and I want him to have a normal graduation just like his sisters before him did. It is his first major educational accomplishment of many more to come. Our community has always been a tight community that comes together in trying times, and we have had some amazing people put together some special moments for our seniors to recognize them. But please consider giving them a normal graduation as they finish their high school years. And I misspoke. And that was respectfully Estella Hernandez. I have 5 comments, not 4. I misspoke earlier. The first one was from Estella Hernandez. Secondly, I'm a parent of a 2020 graduate of LaBelle High School. I'd like to request that the graduation ceremony be held. I, as a parent, feel there is plenty of room on the football field and stands for the kids and immediate family or to his parents. With the state opening, I don't see why this cannot happen. My son said he voted to walk, and he knows many of his peers did as well. They have lost this year and won't have a chance to get it back. On another note, Hendry County is much smaller than some of these cities that are getting hit with this virus. But LaBelle is not that affected by this virus as well. Please, with heavy heart, make the decision to have a graduation for our children. If needed, please wait until June or July to have graduation. Thank you, Sandra Street. I think it's how you say this, spelling the last name Streit. Number 3, I'm a parent of a 2020 graduate of LaBelle High School. I would like to request that a traditional graduation ceremony be held. I, as a parent, feel that there is plenty of room on the football field and stands for the kids and immediate family, which is parents. With the state opening, I don't see why this cannot happen. My son said he voted to walk, and he knows many of his peers did as well. They have lost this year and won't have a chance to get it back. On another note, Hendry County is much smaller than some of these cities that are getting hit with this virus. LaBelle is not affected by this virus as well. Please, with heavy heart, make the decision to have a graduation for our children. If needed, please wait until June or July to have the graduation. Also, this is an issue in which I and many others may be voting on this coming November. Let them walk. Thank you, Mark Street or Straight, spelling Streit. 4th letter. I think a traditional graduation with immediate family only would be good for the seniors, has lost so much of this year and they deserve this. I coordinated the seniors parade in it really good. I'm so proud of our town coming together for our seniors. Please let the seniors have the moment, other dreams that they worked so hard over the years. Thank you. And that is from Ms. Tasha Tyree. And finally, I just wanted to let you know how much my family appreciates all the consideration that has been given to the graduating class of 2020. I know this has not been the year that we dreamed about since our kids were born, but you have all gone above and beyond to make sure that it was special while keeping safety at the forefront. It is difficult to imagine graduation being something other than the celebration that we are used to having. Yet, I think a drive-through ceremony is our very best option. Our students often feel that they are invincible, but unfortunately, that isn't the case. The numbers in our county are still on the rise, and that causes great concern for those of us with loved ones who are compromised. I have done my best to limit the amount of exposure that my family has had over the past 9 weeks. I am unwilling to have all of us crowd onto the football field when there is a safer option available. I understand that changes to the normal routine cause disappointment, but I would rather that than have a tragedy. And this is from Kristen Walker. Madam Chair, those are the public comments, and I do not think that, according to Ms. Thompson, we have any more.
Thank you, Superintendent. Would it be amenable to the board if there's going to be discussion on the public comments we just heard? Can we save that for our action item for graduation dates? Okay, that's what we're going to do. I didn't hear any opposition to that. All right, so we are going to move forward with the consent agenda. Are there any board members who would like an item removed from that and put to action items? Ms. Thompson, I would like to remove consent agenda item F to action item C. And then I know that we were sent information about graduation dates, and we'll make that action item D. On our consent agenda, can I have a recommendation from the superintendent?
Madam Chair, I recommend approval of the consent agenda.
So moved. Second.
Fantastic. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We proceed to action items. We have action item A, the 2020-21 bus routes and school schedules. Superintendent, may I have your recommendation?
I would recommend approval of the 2021 proposed school bus routes. And I want to add this, you will have additional information because these are routes built upon, I think there were 6 volunteers. They are teachers and clerks who agreed to take a run. So these routes effectively put everything back the way they were. Those big gaps, the gaps of students at schools have been eliminated. What we had thought, we had just not gotten to it, and hopefully I'll have it for you by the time we have our budget workshop, is the cost of those additional drivers. They are less because they're not full-time people. Budget item, those numbers that we have for that number of people, we're spending less money to fill those slots with people who already work for us.
Okay, so we have the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? Is there any discussion from the board? I have some discussion I would like to bring forward. I do appreciate the effort to get our Clewiston middle school in particular time back in alignment with the other schools. I know that has been a challenge for the staff and the community. So my mom always tells me that comparison is the thief of joy, but I can't control myself. So I do like to make comparisons and start looking at numbers. And when I'm looking at our numbers here, or the time our students are on campuses, I see a disparity. And so I figured out how much each time a student would get on campus per the schedule. And like LaBelle High School has 1,800 more instructional minutes, which pans out to 30 hours more time at school than a student at CHS. And the LaBelle Middle School student is going to have 2,160 more minutes, which pans out to 36 hours, which is almost an entire work week, over students who would be going to Clewiston Middle School. And then when you look at the discrepancy between LES and Up the Grove, that's a difference of 60 hours between campuses. And LES would have 45 more hours in a year than Eastside or Westside, and 30 more than Central and Country Oaks. And I just don't want to shortchange students. And I'm particularly concerned about Clewiston Middle School because the trajectory that it was on last year was not great. And now I'm seeing them come up, 36 hours shorter than their counterpart on the other side of the county. And I don't understand why we would do that.
Madam Chair, I would ask that you let us take a look at this to figure out what's going on and come up with reasons and explanations and fix if one is in order. It could be that there is more time built into certain schools still, for example, LES, because of that F that they had. I don't know that for sure, but we need to look at all that. I too would be concerned about the issue with Clewiston Middle, but particularly because I wanted to get rid of that time that we said would be used for additional instruction that was not being used for additional instruction. So I want to make sure that no baby is being thrown out with the bathwater. And let me go through and double check on all of these.
Thank you, I would appreciate that. Do you want to table or do you want to remove from the agenda?
I would request that you approve it pending this explanation of the times, because we can come back with an amendment.
Well, I have some other questions in regards to, this indicates that school opening would, to me, when I see it, it indicates it looks like business as usual. And we just got something from the CDC today, was talking about their decision tree. And I was wondering if our district has some reopening plans and what they look like. Are we planning around different scenarios? So we don't have a hurried planning and implementation when we get closer to the time to take action.
I get what you're saying, and the CDC has these things, but we are not the only district who is begging the state for some guidelines and guidance for what our opening would look like. In other words, are we gonna have to maintain social distance on a bus and a classroom in the hallways? Are we going to have the ability to open when we want to open? So there are all sorts of things that they say, work on your opening plans, but we have no guidance. And I just was on the phone with the Superintendent's Association last week, and the state has given us nothing of which to work on. So we can plan, and we can conceive of a whole bunch of scenarios that we could operate on, but we really don't know. I mean, the schools have been sanitized well. We are there, and I will go over this again. And I was trying to contact the Department of Health today to get what they say, and I don't have a response yet from Dr. Pepe. So we will be working on that, but we do follow the CDC guidelines. We understand that they say open up, but we don't know what open looks like, and we don't know what's required.
I just saw the Florida School Board Association share some information about the CDC decision-making tree as it relates to opening up schools. And it was like 3 phases, and maybe that's something worth taking a look at, where it shows you the areas that we should be almost scenario planning for. Because I'm just scared that it's such a fluid situation that we want to get to the 11th hour and have a hurried planning and implementation.
I think I saw what was sent out by Dr. Pepe, and that is the CDC. We are hitting on most of those cylinders. We have done the things that they're saying that we need to do. We do not have the guideline and the guidance coming from the state that tells us what to do. Even Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, while they are trying to get some sort of planning done, they are chomping at the bit because they have to get their stuff done by July 1st in order to open up. And so all of this scenario talk about, well, let's wait and postpone start of school until after Labor Day. Well, that has a whole other set of problems, because how do I pay those people? We will have some starving employees who have gone a long time without a paycheck or us paying their health insurance because contracts have run out. Okay, and the auditor says thou shalt not pay people unless they work X number of days per pay period. So that is problematic. And I have all of the things that you're talking about. Dr. Pepe did send that. One of the calls I have into him is, okay, how does this impact when and how we open school? All right, we already know that we're gonna have to be extra clean. What is gonna be required of the students? What do we need to get for the students in order to open school? That's all that I know. But in terms, if you look through those things, Mr. McCarthy's crew and the crews at each of the schools have been tireless in cleaning and double cleaning and reassessing how we clean and what needs to be cleaned.
I think I'm talking from a standpoint of, are we going to have policy and procedure in place for kids coming in, students coming in? I mean, one of the things that I saw, like phase 1, is do you have the capacity to take their temperatures? to screen these kids every single day? Do you have the places where they can wash their hands? Do you have the supplies? And if you don't meet that, they said, if you don't meet all three of those, then go back to square one. And then if you meet those, then you can move to phase two.
We were talking about, those are precisely things we're talking about. I was just talking to Ms. McCarty about getting the thermometers or the temperature things that flash and have one at each school, or however many we need to have at each school. The other little thing that if you had read that's going to be extremely problematic or a different way of operating is if we have to open shelters. Because then we have to separate the population, and we as a school board, with the people who traditionally are operating and manning those shelters, do not have the medical expertise that's going to be required. And we're going to have to provide separate areas for these people who are there. So we're going to have to lean heavily on the health department, our school nurses, and everyone else who has the medical, who they have the medical expertise we don't have. Because that's a whole lot of other population that we're going to have to service in the event that we have a facility opening.
Yeah, that's another thing to another layer that has to be looked at. But what I'm trying to figure out is where we're going with instruction with our kids in the fall. I know that the Board of Governors are planning to open up universities, and that is encouraging as far as the will to want to open public schools.
Yeah.
So.
But nobody in K-12 population has anything from the state that says this is how it's going to work. We do have CDC guidance, and we are working on that. And we've hit quite a bit of those. The one thing you mentioned was temperature, how to take temperature. I just spoke with Ms. McCarty yesterday about that piece. Because she heard it, she got that information from her meeting with our insurance people.
And then the thought about that is, and this is like the kind of, scenario planning I'm talking about is, okay, do you hit them with, do you take their temperature as they're coming into school, or do you take their temperature before they get on the bus? And, things like that. That's what they were talking about in policy and procedure of the scenario planning.
Exactly, but I need guidance even from the Department of Health, particularly since they're the people who run our nurses. And I can make sure that we double check what we have to do, but we're pretty much there. There are some areas that we still need to work on and recommendations that we need to get in order to implement them in policy.
Okay, so let's go back. we went down a rabbit hole there. Let's get back to the motion. We have the recommendation, the second discussion. Superintendent, you're asking for approval of this, what was put in our board packet with a tentative revisement?
A tentative approval with an explanation of the differences and the variations in the times between and among the schools.
What is the latest that this can be approved? Because we're obviously not printing student handbooks this year because we don't really know what we're doing in fall.
If it pleases the board, we can pull this and bring it up next time.
I just don't want to tentatively approve anything that's going to shortchange anybody, and let's try to get that worked out. I would be more comfortable with that, with doing a one and done on that one.
Okay.
Okay, action item B, we are moving to the 2020-21 instructional reappointment. Superintendent, may I have your recommendation?
Move approval of the 2021 instructional reappointments.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? Do I have a second?
Second.
Second.
Okay. talking.
I thought my mic was on, but it wasn't.
Okay, we got a second on that. Any discussion? I have discussion, imagine that. On this particular one, you know, everything, I know I sent the board members some article about, you know, what Palm Beach County's doing and how other districts in the state are bracing for some pretty brutal cuts. And my concern on this is we haven't got a budget hammered out, but we're going about it as business as usual. And the recommendation, you know, my concern is that there's an FTE shortfall, and I don't think that, didn't we have one in February? But, you know, an FTE shortfall and things like that. And my fear is that if we're gonna end up with excess instructional, and how do you address that?
We've addressed that already by elimination unit in the elementary level, which has nothing to do with the budget. We're talking about a potential reduction in force that the board would have to declare. What this is showing us is that because of the declining enrollment at the elementary levels, we do not need 3 teachers. We actually have moved, there will be a growth of an ESE position at Clewiston High School. Well, middle school, but overall a reduction of 3 in our teacher forces. And so we do the counts. Our FTE shortfalls, we have not been projecting any kind of growth for the past 2 years. So we have, as we move on, we will see, there's things that I'm thinking of from my contacts in the state that show what we have to deal with in terms of the budget. And what that may look like. It's not all bad news, but it's not, you know, it's not dancing.
Well, in that budget packet that Ms. Riccardi sent us, you know, she was talking about, it doesn't look like, I'm not feeling very hopeful that we're gonna have a legislative special session. And what it's gonna come down to is line item vetoes by the governor by June 30th.
Yeah. You and I are getting the same thing. We will not probably have a special session until after the election in November.
And what that means is that's when they're gonna do budget cuts, and they're gonna, you know, middle of the year chaos.
That's the
They
scenario.
never done that.
Yeah, that's what played out in 2008. That's exactly what happened. But there are some things that I think that we can talk about in the workshop, and things I can talk about now. Because if the governor does a line item veto and vetoes heavily, it's our understanding that he's going to try to leave as much education alone in those line items and kill just about everything else. The one thing that's up in the air is this teacher raise. We're hearing that he probably will not veto that. So that puts a big kink into what we have to do. But there's nothing we can do except sit back and wait. The other thing that we're hearing is that we're going to have to pay more for retirement. The FRS paid out more than it took in last year. So that's going to be a gimme, that we're going to have to pay that to bring that, to help pay our part, bring that in line. So we have some times that we can expect probably legislation change. The benefits package, I would expect that could be happening in the next session or so. There are the very first month that we had of the shutdown, it would be March. We have a half a month of the shutdown reflected in that. The state lost $750 million in revenue during that half month. We now have April and May to look at. Things are starting to reopen. We're gonna hope that people decide they can come back to Florida and vacation and do all of those other things. Plus, there's about $4 billion in reserve in the state that we're not sure how much that's gonna be used to manage the shortfall. And then don't know what's gonna be coming down from the feds to help states deal with this issue. So what we're hearing is that it might be good this year that we make it, but next year is gonna go wrong across.
It would seem to me you would want to start the mitigation process now, so it's not shock and awe all at one time. And it concerns me to go and make approvals in the model of doing business as usual when we know what we are facing. And I'm not trying, and I feel like we're trying to make decisions, we're kicking a can down the road. And it's inevitable, it's going to happen. How are we gonna manage it?
We just don't know how big it is. Now, how with your other articles from the other papers, have not engaged for personnel. Have they done that in your, I'm sorry, you muted this. Oh.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm getting a lot of feedback. If you're not talking, can we put it on mute? That sounds good. Okay, Superintendent, what were you saying? You're muted, Superintendent, we can't hear you.
You asked me to mute if I wasn't talking, but now I'm talking. Anyway, are you hearing from other districts that they are not approving personnel appointments?
Absolutely, that they have already started scaling back. What I've read in Leon County is that they have given directive to the superintendent and CFO to bring back sample budgets with 10%, 15%, 20% cuts to it. I can share that article with you. The Tampa Bay Tribune, I also read that about Leon County there. And one of the things I read in like the May 13th article in Tampa Bay was about that there was a bunch of legislators who commented on that, and they said they did think that the teacher raise was going to get the veto from.
I've heard it both ways. Friday was the first time I heard from the FADS organization through Joy Frank that she thought it was going to stay. If that happens and he vetoes it, a lot of our problems disappear. But if the board so directs us to do that type of budgeting for you, it can happen. You know, we're working, we're pedaling awfully fast, but if the board directs us, it's your budget to bring that forth, then we can show you what that looks like. Then then the next part is, okay, how do we implement those cuts? Because 80-something% of our budget is personnel.
And that's the consideration is, what I'm looking at from our financial information, even if we give back that 3% cushion, we are not gonna be able to balance that budget, and eventually these cuts are gonna come. I think that, we have to take a long, hard look about, do we want shock and awe down the road, or do we want calculated good choices made now and to prepare us for what's coming down the road, so we'll be in a better financial position. But I have read that that the cuts are going to be, what the the chairman of the state board told me was, one, don't expect a federal bailout, and two, we're looking at up to 30%. And I've told him about, how bad it was back in 2009. He was like, it's going to be worse. It's going to be tougher. So.
All I can say that I have been sounding that warning for a while, and we will do what we can to, if the board wants you to see, if the board wants us to show a 10, 20, 30% cut in a budget and what it looks like, that's a relatively simple thing to do. Now, by not if we plan for a 30% budget cut, I don't know, it turns out that we don't have it, then that we don't need to. I think you and I are about to say the same thing. We just need to know what it looks like.
I want to know what it looks like, and I'm looking at the 10, 15, 20, like Leon County, because I want to avoid a 30% all at once. Can we lock up here?
Yeah, I got you.
And if you could do a 10%, now to save you from having to go all full blown, but it's measured and it's not as stark and shocking and brutal all at once.
Well, that's still going to be about a $10 million cut, just at 10%. But is that what the rest, do I have a consensus from the board that we should do that?
A $10 million cut on our current projected revenues, our 10% would be 6.68.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was going on the total budget. And I wouldn't say, yes, it would be about a you're right.
6.8, 15 would be just over 10 million, and 20% would be 13.4.
Okay, I stand corrected. I was going over the entire budget.
Okay, yeah.
That what the board wants us to provide.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
we're talking about cuts, we're talking about just getting what it may look like at 20%, as opposed to carrying this motion through now. We're gonna table something, and we're gonna look at, going through with this. And then don't the contract need to be signed, with our teachers for next year in June sometime or before June?
Yeah, well, they expire June 30th, so they would be effective July 1. You're sending a definite, if you do not appoint instructional personnel tonight, you are sending a very clear, definite, strong message to your workforce.
And that's my fear, but we've already, in a spot where we're short teachers, and we're trying to get more. I'm just fearful of sending the wrong message. I understand what you're saying, and we got a little while to look at it, but I don't know, I'm just a little fearful about not getting this done, with our teachers for next year. And once we hit it, I hope we don't hit rock, but that's what I'm trying to have. Teachers we have now in place, that they, be told that we
some things that Anne Marie and I have discussed that we can put in place. It comes doesn't hit the full 6 million, but we would come up with something.
Okay. Thank you.
How long would it take to get information together and just postpone? So we can actually have like real live numbers before we make a decision. I mean, because I'm going to ask to postpone administrative appointments until the 11th hour so we can get a grasp of where we're at financially.
A bunch of that information. Is Ms. McCarty available? Can she speak up? Speak to this, please.
Mr. Carter, you have the floor.
Good evening. I am not sure what information you're asking for. You're asking for exact numbers. If you're looking for what the state is providing, we don't have control over that. If you're looking for what a 10% 10%, 15%, 20% cut, how to do that. If you wanted that by tomorrow, we can certainly start with numbers. Is that what you're thinking, or?
Yes, I mean, I think that we need to see our numbers because, I mean, we know what's ahead of us. And are we gonna hit that wall doing 75 miles an hour, or are we gonna hit it doing 35?
Perhaps, and again, remember the PowerPoint that we got, that I sent out to you, that can be expanded upon to include separate slides. This is the budget that we're talking about now, and these are the considerations that we're doing, balance the budget as it stands, and then the what ifs. What if we get a 10? What if we get a 15? It sounds like that would be satisfactory to everybody. And you have not scheduled your board meeting yet. I'm assuming I would have at least a few days to prepare that, to amend it. Is that what you like? That's not an issue. That's not a problem. That's not right.
No, we can come up with the number. The issue is going to be where are the cuts going to take place?
I'm still concerned about our teachers. We need to let them know that we want to get this done.
Yes, Mr. Basquin, you have the floor.
Yes, sir. I agree. I think we need to have the superintendent and administrative staff where they can make some cuts for us. Show us as well what 10, 15, 20% would look like. And with Mr. Brown's concerns, do our very best to not get rid of any personnel. I do understand we have some teachers that have left. Let's look at not filling those positions. And so we're not losing anybody else that we have already currently. I think we need to take all that into consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Basquin. Reverend Brown, did you want the floor?
Well, I would like to see if we could go ahead and deal with this, and then I just don't want to not secure teaching what we have. And I know we're in a bad situation already, and I hate it like this, but I don't want to not do this and then go to saving time for budgeting over and over again, and we lose teachers that, because everybody's concerned about what is happening. And if I'm a teacher and I know that I can get a job here and secure it now, then I got a family to take care of. But I understand what you're saying about the budget. We don't want to hit a brick wall, which I think we want to hit a wall when you look at it. But I understand you want to hit a little wall at a time, not the whole wall. But
well, what I'm hearing from the principal I live with, who does a tremendous amount of calling and recruiting, is that it used to be real hard to get people to call you back, and he's had several comment that they've left their phone numbers and applications and resumes all over, and they have not been being contacted. And so I mean, that's an anomaly in this situation. Yeah. Never ever had that happen before. And so I don't, to me, my perception of that is that other school districts may be a little shy right now too.
Oh, wow. And we're in the middle of the West Palm and Fort Myers, so it's not really like we can compete. But
well, we also have to do better at maintaining class size, Florida constitutional requirement. One thing to bear in mind is that if we hire someone, their contract is effective July 1. That doesn't mean we are bound to them until they get that contract in their hand and signed. We could withdraw due to unforeseen circumstances. We could go to impact bargaining. We can declare something called a reduction in force. So there are still tools available for reduction in forces, but you have to do what you have to do. And I'm not saying that we are there, but I'm just pointing out the tools that we have. So the hiring can continue to take place, and offer can be withdrawn with, as long as we we do it prior to the effective date of the contract.
Madam Chairman, let me ask, Mr. Superintendent, let me ask you for, based on your experience and what we've been through during the time we had the election, what's the recommendation for us to do right now? How are you feeling that we should do right now?
If you'll recall, during that time, very few teachers lost positions. There were some annual contracts who were told, thank you for your service. There were some vacancies that were not filled. We don't have a decent handle on that right this second, but we could. You know, the state is providing us information and data that pretty much just shows everything running along as normally. And then I know what the fear should be is that in November, wham, it's going to be, the rug's going to be pulled out from under you. That is my fear. So if we can, when do you, well, let me ask this, when do you want to have a budget workshop? Next Tuesday?
Yeah, we have to. I mean, we have to. I just don't want to get too close to the time that we need to have the teachers secured here and then, have a problem there. But next week will be fine. If it
The students that is in compliance with the notifications, I think that's when we need to meet. Would that be on Tuesday or would it be Thursday? Wednesday.
That would be, if we could get it posted tonight, we can say it's the 7 day.
Okay.
So that would be Tuesday. That gives us a chance to do what Laura says and also try to build some comfort levels, because as this opening is happening, things are looking better. Okay, so we don't know what it's going to look like. If things drag on and on and on, it's dire, and I can't, I feel for everybody deal with it. But if we can get less in, who knows what things look like in April. I don't have that yet, but that would give us some idea. April was like the rock bottom month, and that would give us an entire month of how badly the economy in Florida was hit in terms of sales tax revenue. So if we can do it, hopefully Beverly is hearing me and we can get this posted, like maybe now, so that we can go ahead and have the we can get you really that. I think the more data you have, the better decisions you're going to make.
I agree.
So, in other words, make a long story longer, I can see where everybody would understand why we're holding off on the appointments.
Okay. So next
Can we
Tuesday.
can we actually meet for this workshop and not do this online?
If we can take that conversation into board member business, if you will ask that, I think that Molly has an answer for us. We'll ask it during that time. But I feel you, Dr. Berg.
I like
Okay.
seeing y'all on the screen. I like, hey, I can do that. y'all.
You're just friendly in any atmosphere.
I'm good.
So do we want to postpone this decision until after the workshop? Or do you want this, are you recommending it being approved and enacting the fallback if we have to, get closer to time than just not offer the contract?
Okay, just so that you're aware, you're going to send a signal by not approving that's going to cause a certain level of panic. All right, I think we can handle that panic by just saying it's been held until we get a better budget figure. The Teachers Association is hearing the same exact number as we are. Okay, so they know what's happening. And if we are doing this in order to protect jobs, as many as we can, to know that we are making a financially sound decision to get this done, they will understand the 2-week delay. And we can do this and have an idea about our administrative appointments at the next school board regular meeting.
And for our staff who's listening to this, you know, I hope it doesn't come across my line of questioning come off harsh, but my goal is I want to see these numbers because it's more than just cutting positions. There's other things that can be cut. My goal is, you know, I know what our employment numbers look like, and I know, you know, what the needs of our students are, and I want to protect every single job. But if there's anything, every single position, but if there's anything else out there that we can do to make that happen, any other cuts we can make to make that happen, then I want to know what that is, and I want to know what those numbers are just right up front.
Well, I know it's out there also, and we need to understand that is some people have liked what we're doing. Some parents have liked the students being on distance learning. And there is a number floating around among the K-12 components and the other online entities that they are expecting a 15% increase in student enrollment. Okay, so we need to bear in mind that part also. Okay, I've already been in conversation with Ms. Stitt regarding this information. So if we just take that 15% in Hendry County, assuming that many people do it, you're talking about 1,000 students less.
Wow. You were saying they like being at home.
Not everybody, some parents can't wait to get the kids back in school, but some parents have liked it. And some students have liked it. We have some teachers who like it, who have asked, can you consider letting me do this from now on? And I've had that happen to me at Clewiston and at LaBelle. So, it has been very difficult and it's been very time consuming, but it also in certain areas is fairly popular.
We need to advertise that we have a K-12 program available then, get ahead of that thing and try to get as many of them enrolled in our K-12 program as possible.
Well, that's what we need to do with the for K-12. There's a certain number of students who from Hendry County still like all the FTE. Okay, so yeah.
That's why I think we need to get ahead of it and advertise it to anybody that is afraid of sending their kids back to brick and mortar. You know, we have a K-12 program out there available.
Yeah. Let them, yeah, and believe me, go to Lakeland, they are advertising the heck out of it.
Oh, yeah. All right.
All right, so we are going to move forward. Is there any further comment on that? And are we all okay on holding off on it for 2 weeks?
So we're
Okay.
okay for 2 weeks,
Yes, ma'am.
and that date is?
Whatever they,
I don't have a calendar, I think.
board meeting,
We're looking at June 2nd.
yes,
June 2nd,
Yes, ma'am.
okay. Could you consider the time as we can do it live?
We're gonna discuss the, we've got the date, and I would, if we can finish up our action items, we'll have Molly address, our counselor, address, if we're allowed to meet in person, and then we can determine our time after that, if that's okay.
Yes, I like that.
All right, we're gonna do that. Okay, so we're gonna move forward to action item C, approval of purchases. Do I have the superintendent's recommendation?
I recommend approval of all purchases.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Thank you. Any discussion? Okay, I have discussion. So on the purchase orders, on purchase order number 1 here, it is a Florida Transformative Education for $33,000. It's a student teacher subscription for 3 years paid out of general fund. And when we were talking about cutting programs as opposed to positions. This was kind of one of the things where I was talking about you can live without a program, but you can't live without the people running your district. And that was a general fund one. I'm curious about item 4, which was the 1 million project for 1,000 hotspots, paid out of general fund 2. I know that signals to me that this extended learning could be going on longer than I imagine. And, but that's another $44,000 is that, can it be paid from somewhere else?
That, I believe, and Jason, if he's here, is that part of your grant that you're talking about?
Yes, the $1 million project, it is grant funded. Now, the initial hotspot purchase that we have on the board for approval tonight is for the devices. It comes in at half price of the actual device. The grant will fund the subscription for 2 years. So after the initial purchase of the 1,000 hotspots, there will be no continuation of charges for the subscription fees associated with the data for each one of those individual hotspots.
Okay, so we're already talking a potential of losing 1,000 students. So why are we picking up 1,000 hotspots?
What we have discovered through this pandemic and the distance learning is that we have a significant amount of students that do not have internet access at home. So in order to close that gap and provide internet access to those students in need, we have been fortunate enough to be accepted into the $1 million project so that we could have this sufficient amount of hotspots to provide to those students so that they can take those home and access online textbooks and do homework and be able to participate at 100% even when school is back fully in session.
Do these hotspots, what about areas like the Montero, Pioneer, Ladika area? They typically, traditionally just have really challenging, even cell phone reception out there. Are these hotspots going to address those issues?
The hotspots will not resolve any kind of connection issues. I mean, if they don't have cell phone data in a certain location, then the hotspot's not going to provide any kind of improvement to that. But however, they do reach and access this Sprint, T-Mobile. They also roam off Verizon. So if there is any kind of cell phone reception in any location, they will work.
Well, that's the issue out in Montero is there isn't. And, you can have 3 or 4 carriers and still not be able to pick up a reception. And that is like, there's 800-900 kids out there.
Can I speak to this for just a moment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What we discovered when we did I had the principals in Eastern Hendry County get an idea of how many Chromebooks have been sent out. And the biggest issue, believe it or not, for the students who did not have internet access, because even though you have the provider, the parents may not be subscribing to it. Believe it or not, yes, Montero is a problem. Pioneer's a problem. The biggest problem was the eastern portion of the city of Lewiston and Booker's Point. Because the number of people who were not able to get on. Now, hotspot equity piece, and that was now, I can't tell you the specific addresses, but that's what particularly the elementary principals were telling me. Specifically, well, I was talking to 2 of them. All of them responded. The east side and Central said the biggest issue we have is in that area. That's why Central used a lot of this time, not with Chromebooks, but with paper pencil. Okay. Now, a hotspot accessibility issue is that secondary high school students had hotspot availability. It turned out that that's all who had hotspot availability during this time. So they went after this to look at where we could be more equal in terms of availability for elementary and middle school students. Now, I did not mean to say that we're going to lose 1,000 students earlier. I just meant to say that this remote access digital learning is appealing to certain people. Okay, so there is nothing on our horizon that says 10,000 kids are going to leave. I was just saying, if their projections are correct, and we apply that projection to Henry County, this is what it would mean in Henry County. So we're not going to be about kids. If the economy still is not doing well, families may move like they did before during the recession. And this looks like this studies curriculum for LaBelle Middle. And if you want to pull that up and see what that is all about. Okay.
Sorry, had you on mute inadvertently. Yes, please check on that, because these are that low hanging fruit that can LaBelle Middle School live without an AHA program? Probably. Can they live without that para? Probably not. So, if we can pull that.
I'll look at it.
Okay, so do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, and we're going to move forward to action item D, graduation dates. Superintendent, you have the floor.
I think that I have the floor. I'm reading your lips.
Yes, sir, you have the floor.
Everything was kind of jerking around a little bit. Okay, let me explain a few things that I'm concerned about. And I'm not necessarily wanting to dictate what graduation looks like, but I am concerned. I mean, you're aware graduation should already have happened. Because of those dates, there are certain students who have made plans. We have students who are reporting to the military, like the Monday after the first day of June, okay, is when they're reporting. They're not going to be able to come back. As time goes on, students are going to be going away. The class is going to get smaller and smaller and smaller. Clewiston, for example, had 20 new COVID-19 cases yesterday and 2 today. My fear is that because of the wonderful accomplishments of these classes, that we're going to set a date in June and we're going to set a date in July, and those are going to come and go, and we're still nowhere near where we need to be. I've done some calculations. Believe me, I have worked on this for a long time because I don't want this. This is unusual. I can't fix it. I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have any way to make up for the fact that these students not only lost their prom, they lost their grad night, grad bash. They're going to lose graduation if I don't do something. So toward that end, LaBelle High School has about 300 who are graduating, and a stadium that seats 3,500. Clewiston High School has a class of 215, with Kane Field seating capacity at approximately 4,000. Okay? If we have social distancing with groups of no more than 10, that makes graduation extremely difficult. Level 2 moves the group to 50. That's more doable, but when you talk about how many people we want to put in the stadium, that's still not able to do so easily. one school district in Florida has actually said, we're gonna set our graduation for December. That to me is tough. That's really tough. So I met digitally I asked the principals of both high schools to get together a group that we can talk to. Basically, I wanted to know, what are the givens? What must graduation look like? Unanimously, they did not want a virtual graduation. They said, no, we don't want that. We want a traditional way of walking. I said, you can make your decision and I'll live with your decision, but you need to know what I know. And let's come up with any kind of alternative scenarios. So, because that like the night drive had just been in their minds, they said, well, we can do something like that. I said, yes, but what are the drop dead things you have to have? Well, to a person, and I talked to the schools individually, and it's amazing how close they were. The speeches were important. The Val and Sal speeches were important. I said, we can do that. We can live stream that. An ability to be with their class as a unit. I said, we can handle that. It's going to look different. Your procession might be in a car instead of walking across the field, but that can happen. I said, we can make that happen. Fireworks. I said, okay, fireworks might you be signaling the beginning of the ceremony rather than the end of the ceremony just because of what happens. They want to see their teachers. They want to see their teachers, and the part that really stuck to me is there was a student at Williston High School who said, can we go to the school one more time? I said, well, yeah, but why? She said, I had no idea that when I left school on spring break, that would be the last time I would walk through Williston High School. So I said, we can by sure make that happen for this class. So those are the things that I want to do because the students are going to start drifting away. How the school sets up their graduation, I don't really care because they need to, as long as they work with the parents and the students to set it up. Now, there was a miscue last week because I did all of this last Wednesday. Then all of a sudden we found out that LaBelle High School had decided to change the date. The date that I had left them with, that I was going to ask you folks for, was May 29th. Then it comes up May 30th at 8 a.m. That wasn't ever discussed. So let's put that aside. Lewiston, the students in Lewiston wanted June 6th. And I said, okay, tell me why is that? They have 34 graduates from the Collegiate Academy. They want to be able to graduate from FSW before they graduate from Lewiston High School. And I get that. I get it. They said we graduate June 5th from FSW. If we can have June 6th, we will be happy gamers. Now, did I talk to everybody? No. Am I going to get 100% approval of this plan? No. But this is the best we can do because these students have really, more than anybody, got the once over by all of this. The communities have been super in supporting them. We had a parade here in town. The students in Lewiston have really gone off, and I think, did we send you a letter that they sent? I think we did. They have really come up with a plan to do this. So rather than doing the weeds, getting into the weeds of this, oh, and also the one thing they wanted, and they wanted a ceremony later. Once this is calmed down, can we have something that we can get together and maybe do something that's traditional? Well, that could work. That could be in cement. They can work on that. For instance, they may want to do a baccalaureate since they didn't have a baccalaureate. They can plan that later. One idea that was floated in Clewiston is if you really wanted to come back, we can have a ceremony for the class of 2000 right before the class of 21 graduates, so that they would be recognized as Tiger alumni and alumna. To make a long story longer, that's what I did. So I will make a recommendation. I don't think we don't normally do anything except set the time and then let the schools work with it. I would recommend that LaBelle High School graduates Saturday, May 30th at 10 a.m. And the Clewiston High School graduates Saturday, June 6th at 8 p.m. at Kane Field. 10 a.m. at LaBelle High School Stadium. Then, for the formal event that both schools have asked, I would ask that we consider June 27th. That's a Saturday for that formal event. And my recommendation is that whatever the ceremony looks like, it must follow CDC guidelines. If we're still under no more than 10, that's how many students can be there at a time, okay? If it's a family issue, family can, if they do the drive-through, family can be in the vehicles. If one of the things that we have to consider is when people say immediate family, we've got to define what immediate family is. One senior student in Clewiston said, what if your parents are separated and they may not like each other, or they have remarried? How do we count parents? That two parents with the remarriage in there? So that's 4 people, and then siblings, grandparents. We need to say how many are immediate. And we have been fortunate for a long time now that we've used the outside that we've never put a cap on how many people have been able to attend an outside ceremony. When they were inside, yes, we did, but not when they're outside. So the cap would be how many people can fit in the car. If it's a situation where the parents need to have 2 cars, what do we care? They're gonna have 2 cars. Let them in there to celebrate. These kids, these students have suffered enough. And we need to make a sweet lemonade out of this bunch of lemons that we were handing them as possible. So that's my recommendation for those dates. If Clewiston wanted a parade, and so the plan is that after it's over, they will parade through by the sub-office in King Field, a parade so that people can do that. In LaBelle, they have a parade already, but they've also discussed the fact that once we leave the stadium, we can turn right, and those family and friends who could not go can line the street and recognize that's where they all park anyway for graduation, and recognize the graduates as they parade out that way. Clewiston has a much easier way to have a parade and of this nature than LaBelle does.
Okay, thank you, Superintendent. We have the recommendation. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, any further discussion?
So moved. Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
Late to the game, Greg.
Yeah, my
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you so much. This is going to mean so much to so many.
Okay, so moving down to board member business. I know Dr. Berg has some board member business, so will you ask your questions?
I have a question. When is our next meeting?
And
Tuesday.
Molly, will you give us an update on if we're allowed to have the in-person meetings, and if so, what do we have to do on that?
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairwoman Houston and members of the board and Superintendent Coletti. So at your last meeting, you asked this question, and as I understood it, you asked me to research two areas. One is the legal authority governing whether or not you can hold live meetings, and the other is polling what other school districts around the state are doing. So starting with the legal guidance, we briefly discussed at the last meeting, there was some guidance from the Department of Education that came out in March that did state that district school board meetings should be postponed through June 30th, 2020. Now that's guidance, it doesn't have a legal effect of law, so it's not mandatory on you. And then shortly thereafter, the governor issued his executive order 2069, which suspended the statutory requirements for in-person quorum and provided that local governments can hold their meetings virtually. So that did allow boards to be able to meet virtually if they wanted to, which you and many other districts have done. And on April 29th, so more recently, the governor issued his executive order 20-112, which extended his previous executive order, so extending the time period that local government boards are allowed to meet virtually. So that's still an option to do. In that executive order 20-112, the governor also provided that persons in Florida should continue to limit their personal interactions outside the home. That persons in Florida should avoid congregating in large groups. And that also that senior citizens and individuals with significant underlying medical conditions are strongly encouraged to stay home and take all measures to limit their exposure to the COVID-19 virus. So the legal authority basically is permissive of holding live meetings, but it's also permissive of holding virtual meetings and having that executive order, which suspends some of the requirements for having in-person quorum. When I surveyed school boards across the state, the majority of them were holding their meetings entirely virtually. I didn't get to every single school board, but I think there were about 13 that I polled that were doing virtual. There was only one that was doing completely live meetings. There were a few that were doing, well, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think that I polled that were doing a mixture of live and virtual. So some people, maybe a couple board members or superintendent, were meeting in the room, and maybe a few members were meeting virtually. So they were also having it set up so that people could participate virtually. And some of the practices that I saw that the boards were doing, who were doing that kind of mix of live and virtual meetings, were that they were having less than 10 persons in the room at all times. So if they were maybe going to have staff present, maybe not all the staff would be in the room at the same time. You know, if you needed a staff member to talk to an item, they would come into the room to talk to that item and then leave. If you were having public comment and allowing the public to come, you know, they stand outside and then, you know, they can come in one at a time, say their comment and leave, so that you're avoiding having too many persons in the room or close together. Again, having people 6 feet apart is the recommendation. Having persons who are at a higher risk for infection, the people with the underlying medical health conditions, and the senior citizens, allowing them to continue to meet virtually. And also, yeah, I think that's most of the types of precautions that they're taking when they're doing the mixture of the live and virtual meeting. So basically, it's permissible to continue to hold your meetings virtually and be in accordance with the law. It's permissible to hold a live meeting, although it's recommended that you meet those types of guidelines for keeping social distancing still. And yeah, so it's really kind of up to the board how they want to do that. I would recommend that if you were going to hold your meeting live, that you would allow some virtual participation for persons who still have health conditions that don't allow them to be present, or just even to limit, you know, the amount of people who are coming. And also, I would just like to say, we have Terry Harmon as well. He was just listening in. He hadn't, checked it in a while and just wanted to check it tonight. So I just wanted to let you all know that as well. And if there's any questions about this, please let me know.
Well, thank you, Molly. Glad to have you with us, Terry. All right, I guess this opens up discussion on which way this board wants to go. I do like the idea of having the option to participate in person or virtually. So let's go down the line. Uh-oh. I see you, Red. You gotta unmute yourself, but I see you talking.
I keep forgetting to put it, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
All right. I like to stay here. I know, I like seeing y'all big face on the screen. So I'm happy with virtual.
All right. You like virtual? Would you be amenable to a hybrid model where if board members so choose, they can participate virtually and other ones participate in person?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. What about you? I just see Mr. Basquin's face here. So his shiny face. So what are your thoughts, Mr. Basquin?
I agree with Dr. Berg. I think that in person is a better meeting, me personally, partially because I'm out toward the Flagler Monterey area where the internet service is not as great as we have already discussed. So I just think an in-person meeting is better, and I'm open to if people like Reverend Brown do not want to participate in person. I do not have a problem with that at all.
And what about you, Dr. Berg? Where are you at on this?
I would like it in person, but I can do the other one. I'll sit here and drink my coffee and.
Well, if you like in-person meetings, I mean, you can still come. I mean, that would be an option.
Yeah, okay.
All right, what about you, Mrs. Nelson?
I prefer the in-person, obviously, because I want to touch all of them. But I'm kidding. I like Mr. Baskin saying the connectivity is kind of an issue and it's very hard to do and everything. I would be fine with the hybrid model if some people want to do and virtually and some people. So I would go with whatever the board chooses. I'll be able to touch you problem.
I think it's important to, we're not gonna dive into why a person may not feel comfortable participating in a live meeting, but I do think it's, if we're able to, for the ones of us who do prefer that in person, hopefully we can do that with the participation of those who may want to participate virtually. So, I think.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Let me ask this, will you wear a mask in the meeting?
If you cannot maintain social distance, yes.
Say again now, I did.
Okay, if you cannot maintain social distance, masks are required.
Okay.
All right. Now, this might be a case where you can come and then meet virtually in another room, but be in the building. It matters not, but that's one of the things until we get to level 2, where it's not a group of 10, it's a group of 50. That gives us a lot more ability.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so would the board be comfortable if our budget workshop, we tentatively, we make, if you want to be there virtual or in person, you can attend in person, and if you want to attend virtually, you can attend virtually next
Tuesday.
Yeah, next Tuesday.
What's the date?
The 26th.
Where would that meeting be held, Clewiston or LaBelle?
Oh, I don't even know that one.
Let's do Clewiston. It's been a while since, let's do Clewiston.
Are you sure you want to listen with our COVID?
Okay, here, I was gonna say that most of the COVID individuals are working for long-term facilities, long-term care. So there are a few in the same here in LaBelle, we have, I think, 30 cases, 15 of them are in nursing home. So, you know, if you want to stay in LaBelle, I just kind of enjoy going to Clewiston, but I can stay in LaBelle. That's,
Where is our June 2nd meeting is scheduled to be in Clewiston? Let's do the workshop in LaBelle.
5:30.
Fair? Is that fair for everybody? 5:30 LaBelle on the 26th?
Just a minute, I'll use the paper. Wait a second. Okay, my battery's going. So June, what's the date?
June 26th. June 26th at 5:30 in LaBelle.
5:30
Wait,
at the bell.
May 20th.
no, May.
Not
Okay.
May, oh, sorry, May.
May.
Don't write down anything I tell you before. I'm looking at June 2nd below me,
I'm
sorry.
trying to tell you, I'm
So
on.
it's May 26th.
May 26th is the workshop at LaBelle.
Yes, May 26th, 5:30, and June 2nd, 5:30 in Clewiston.
For regular board meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
5:30 in Clewiston.
Correct.
So we'll have a May 26th and June 2nd.
That's PM.
Okay.
All right.
That's
Check that one off.
sure you should tell us who's all doing it. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And if Mr. Adams, prior to the board meeting, will just reach out and confirm with the board members to see who wants to participate, who intends to participate in person and then online, and just get that queued up. That would be fantastic.
Okay.
I will do
Madam
that.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I know I will not be able to attend on that on Tuesday. I was just looking at my calendar. I have conflicting dates that are scheduled that day. I don't know if that's a problem for anybody else or what. I just was looking at my calendar. And unfortunately, I will not be able to attend that day. Can we move it to another day?
Wednesday be too late. Or Wednesday better for me. Wednesday or Tuesday.
Wednesday. I mean, I don't have anything.
So what dates are we talking here?
I apologize.
No,
If we
you
can-
have to do what you got to do.
Well, actually, that's not a bad idea because of coming off of the holiday, you know, some people have not, some people may. So you want to move it to Wednesday, the 27th?
May 27th, Wednesday at 5:30 in LaBelle.
May
Yes.
27th is Wednesday, right?
Correct.
That's what you said? I don't know. Okay. That's the first one. Is there another one after that? June 2nd, Clewiston?
Yes, ma'am. Let's see.
June the 2nd at 5:30 in Clewiston?
Yes.
Is that right, Madam Chairman? Young lady?
Yes, that's going on. Sorry.
I'm sorry, you were on mute. Yes, ma'am. That's the June 2nd, 5:30 Clewiston.
Okay. All right. And we'll meet at the board office there, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. May 27th and June 2nd.
Yes, ma'am. Do you have any other board member business?
No, not all right.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Basquin, do you have any board member business?
I'm good, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Basquin. Reverend Brown, do you have any board member business?
Well, I had a question for the superintendent, but his explanation to some of your questions in the beginning, answered all of it. So, about when we're gonna try to get back, things like that, but did a great job at that, so I don't have anything.
Yeah, and we're gonna get together. Dr. Staley sent me an email to start planning. There are things that we could talk about, so I'm gonna get with her and go, some sort of meeting to discuss it.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mrs. Nelson, do you have any board member business?
No, ma'am, I'm good tonight, thank you.
But I've got one more thing to add.
Okay.
All right. It's not a problem. LES, and Dr. Mundy sent me a text. LES is still a low 300 school, so it still has that extra hour. Because it's still, even though it is improving, it's still showing as a low 300 in the state. So when we go through the board, the bus schedule, that's going to start by there. But other than that, that's all I have. And again, you have made a whole bunch of people, graduates, seniors, very happy. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And I'll conclude my board member business. I just wanted to give you guys a little update on the Public School Foundation. And we have been chugging along this year, and we did better than last year, which is, that I'm happy about that. But we awarded this year $22,000 in scholarships.
Wow.
And just over $50,000 in classroom grants. So that was a jump from last year, and we're gonna keep that momentum going for next year and just try to continue to build capacity.
Good.
Very good, very good.
That's what I have to let you know. And if there is no further report, is there any further comment or board member discussion? Okay, fantastic. With that, thank you guys for a great meeting. We got a lot of good work done, and I look forward to seeing all of you on May 27th at our board workshop. And with that, our meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Peace.
Everyone take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.